Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. It's fantastic to see you here joining us for our first Reviewer Credits webinar in what will be a series of events. Every month, we'll be hosting events, talking about peer review, talking about training, talking about helping peer reviewers, talking about managing the peer review process. My name's Gareth Dyke. Welcome to our Reviewer Credits webinar today, this morning, this evening. I don't know what your time zone is, but you're very, very welcome to our event. And thank you so much for joining while we're waiting for more colleagues, more researchers, more peer reviewers to join us in our event. Why not type a few things into the chat box? Why not tell us where you're from? Tell us your name, your university, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself. Don't be shy. Put some information about yourself into the chat box. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Tell us a few things about yourself as we get started in our webinar event this afternoon, this evening, this morning. My name's Gareth Dyke. I'm the academic director at ReviewerCredits.com, and we are going to be talking in this event about reviewer credits and our vision for peer reviewer recognition. We're going to talk about who we are, and we're going to talk about how we can help you with your career development as a peer reviewer, because we understand, perhaps unlike anyone else, just how fantastically, amazingly wonderful the peer review process is, but how little support with the peer review process is provided to peer reviewers, to researchers all around the world. So thank you so much, Saudi Arabia, Algeria. I know we have colleagues here from London. We've got colleagues here from Ukraine. We've got colleagues here from Budapest. I'm sitting right now in Budapest. So thank you so much for joining, and we will be inviting you to put your comments and questions into the chat box. You can also use the Zoom Q&A function if you like, but the chat box is much easier. We're going to have several opportunities over the course of our event today for you to interact, for you to ask questions, and do feel free to get in touch with us at any time after the event. Of course, everybody attending our event today will be getting access to a recording. Everybody will be getting access to a certificate, and we are always here to provide follow-up and feedback on any aspects of peer review and the peer review process. You've got my email address there on the screen, and thank you, colleagues, for putting some information about yourselves into the chat box. Liberia, Dimitro from Ukraine, now in London. Fantastic to see everybody. Argentina, wonderful, fantastic. We will be getting started just now, and I'm sure that more colleagues will join us over the course of our event today. As I mentioned already, Gareth is my name. You're looking at me on video and also on the screen. So let's get going. I will say a few things about Reviewer Credits, the company, what Reviewer Credits is all about, and we will be talking in a little bit more detail about the review process, and there's opportunities for your questions, and we invite your participation. We'd love it if you got involved, if you gave us some feedback, if you your questions, your comments at any time there into the chat box from Colombia, Ivory Coast, Argentina, Pakistan. Dr. Farouk is joining us, one of my good friends in the training and research areas, providing support to researchers all over the world. So maybe you've heard of ReviewerCredits.com before. Maybe you're joining this event wondering what ReviewerCredits.com is all about. Well, ReviewerCredits.com is an independent and innovative platform for providing help with the peer review process. We provide support with the peer review process, and we provide a number of key things that are helpful and supportive for peer reviewers. And we'll talk about what those are in a moment, what the issues are around peer review in a moment. But what we do above all on the ReviewerCredits.com platform, and if you haven't seen it before, I do encourage you to have a look at ReviewerCredits.com. What we do uniquely is we provide a reward system for peer reviewers. You may have seen some other sites that provide recognition for peer review, but we are the only publisher independent site that is providing rewards to peer reviewers who perform peer review. And let me tell you from my experience doing lots of training, lots of webinars all around the world online, mostly one of the most common questions that we do get asked about the peer review process is, why am I not getting paid? Why am I not getting rewarded? I'm putting in all this effort as a researcher, as a peer reviewer. I'm doing all this work for journals, for publishers. I'm not getting anything out of it. And we are here at ReviewerCredits.com to change that paradigm. So it's an independent platform supporting the peer review process by validating, certifying peer review, and by providing tangible rewards to peer reviewers. You, researchers who spend your valuable time working on peer review for journals. And of course, peer review, it's the cornerstone, it's the benchmark for academic publishing. Now, a little bit of nitty-gritty, a little bit of administrative information. This is now a second-generation startup, a member of COPE and ORCID, and already associated with a very large number of journals all over the world. And what we're doing, what we're providing, is an opportunity for researchers, people like me, to get recognized and rewarded for peer review activity. And we provide certification as well. So if you haven't looked at the site, reviewercredits.com, do have a look at the site, because on that site, on our site, you can get access to content, access to the reward center, access to certification as a peer reviewer, and it's all free of charge. Do have a look. Join us at ReviewerCredits.com. No cost whatsoever to peer reviewers, to researchers. And we'll come on in a moment as to why that's so important, as to why we feel, I feel, the team at Reviewer Credits feel that this is a fantastic idea and a wonderful opportunity for peer reviewers, for researchers all around the world. It's one of those fantastic ideas that cuts across the publishing industry. So let me just take another moment, administratively speaking, and show you some fantastic photographs of the current Reviewer Credits team. Dr. Sven Fund, the managing director, Dr. Dmitros Shestakov, our chief of product. There's me, there's Pablo, and there's David. People now working on the platform, working to redevelop the Reviewer Credits platform, to relaunch the Reviewer Credits platform and bring it forward as a tool, as a training resource, as a certification resource, very important for peer reviewers. And so if you'd like to get in touch with us, you certainly can do so in the chat box in this webinar at any moment throughout our event today. But do also have a look at the website. I've encouraged that already a few times in our event today, but we do have a contact us form that enables you to get in touch directly with us. So a cross-cutting platform integrated with a large number of journals and publishers already. What you do is you sign up on the reviewercredits.com platform, you make an account. If you haven't got an account already, you get validated. You maybe take some training courses, which are also present on the site. You get connected with journals, which is absolutely fantastic, especially for young researchers for whom the peer review process can be very confusing and very difficult to understand. You don't know when journals send you emails inviting you to do peer review. You don't know if those are coming from reputable journals or not. You don't know how to perform peer review. And that's why our site exists, to provide a reward system for peer reviewers, but also to provide certification so that when you get an email from an editor at a journal, dear Gareth, I'd like to invite you to perform peer review for the journal of X, Y, and Z. If that message is coming to you through the ReviewerCredits platform or is certified by the ReviewerCredits platform, you know as a researcher that you are dealing with a reputable journal. You know that you are not going to be wasting your valuable time and expertise. And on the ReviewerCredits platform, you also know that you will be rewarded for those efforts. So let's just take a moment. Let's talk a little bit about the peer review process itself. And I'm delighted to see that we have a large number of participants joining us from all over the world. I'm seeing people from Algeria, a number of participants, and also from Algeria, from the Ivory Coast, from Argentina, from Colombia. What is peer review? And I like to start these kinds of workshops, these kinds of training sessions by just asking this question. And you'd be amazed at the variety of different responses that researchers often give when they are asked this question. Here's the top four responses that researchers around the world give us when we're asking them the question, what is peer review? They say, it's an opportunity for me as a researcher to get to look at all the data that underlies a research project, that underlies a paper. They say peer review is an opportunity to help me improve my work. They say peer review is a way of maintaining the integrity of scholarly publications. And they even say that peer review is a process that helps and makes sure that famous professors get their work published in good journals. Well, actually, as you're probably well aware, if you're listening to this as a researcher, as a journal editor, or even as somebody working with a publisher, perhaps we have some of those colleagues with us this evening as well. Of course, we know that peer review, above all, the process of peer review, passing submitted manuscripts, passing submitted research information out to a number of experts in the field who then evaluate that content and give feedback for its hopefully eventual publication in a journal. Really, the fundamental reason that we perform peer review, that journals and publishers engage with peer review, that we trust peer review as researchers, is of course to help maintain the integrity of scholarly publications in order that we are able to use the information in our subsequent research. We can cite the information in our subsequent papers. We expect that that research, of course, has been peer reviewed. And I always say to young researchers, especially, you should never, ever, ever, ever be considering publishing your research, your fantastic research results, in a journal that does not use peer review. That would be a waste of your time. That would be a waste of your effort. That would be a waste of your research energy. So peer review, of course, it's not there just to make sure that famous professors get their work published in good journals. It is fundamentally in place across the academic publishing industry to maintain the integrity of scholarly publications. And that, of course, is very important. And publishers, academic journals, your university, your research institute is interested in ensuring that the integrity of the research that you do is sound and that your research gets published in the best journals possible. Of course, a byproduct of the peer review process is that our work gets better as researchers. That's a byproduct though. This is the most common response, however, that researchers give us in workshops when asked the question, why do journals perform peer review? Most often people say that the function of peer review is to help me improve my research quality, to help me improve the quality of my content, but really that's a byproduct. Really the main reason that journals, academic publishers use peer review is to maintain the integrity of scholarly publications. So that's our very important starting point. Reviewer credits fits into this system because we provide validation of peer reviewers. We have a system in place that means that your identity as an expert, as a reviewer in your particular subject area is validated on the Reviewer Credits site, which means that when you perform peer review, you'll get training on the Reviewer Credits site, you'll get expertise, you'll build up that body of knowledge in order to be able to perform effective peer review for a journal. Journals, on the other hand, are going to be very, 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 very happy with your peer review because they know that your peer review has been done by somebody who is verified and is who they say they are. So that's important. We are helping to maintain the integrity of scholarly publishing by validating, certifying, training, and rewarding peer reviewers. So very critically, peer review, what does it do? It filters and improves content for research. And this is critical because in my experience as a researcher, and many of you attending this event today will totally agree with me, I'm sure, when you submit a manuscript on your research to a journal, it is a painful and difficult experience often to get that paper successfully through the peer review process. By the time you get to the end of the peer review process with your article as a researcher, you feel relief. You feel like it's been a massive ordeal. Most scientists regard streamlined peer review as quite an improvement. It is never, almost never, a good experience for researchers. And we are here at Reviewer Credits to change that perception. Very little training, very little support is provided to peer reviewers by publishers, by universities, by research institutes. Often it's something that we are just expected to be able to do. I know this myself as a researcher. You probably know this yourself also. When you get asked, when you get invited by journals to perform peer review, you are almost always not told how you should be doing that. That is something that is very important to emphasize. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, one of the things that we are doing at Reviewer Credits is providing peer reviewers with support, providing peer reviewers with training. Have a look at our site. We've got a number of great training courses up on the site to help you gain those key skills that you need, that you will need in order to be able to peer review a paper effectively. What do peer reviewers look for? What should they be looking for when they are asked by journals to evaluate papers, to evaluate content for potential publication? I was never told this when I was a PhD student. I was never helped to do peer review. I just started getting emails from journals inviting me to perform peer review for them. What should I have been looking for? Well, I should have been looking for whether or not the hypothesis in the article I'm being asked to assess is relevant or not. I should have been looking for whether the methodology in the article I was being asked to assess as a peer reviewer was appropriate. I should have been looking at whether the data analysis in the paper I was being asked to assess as a peer reviewer was good or not? Is the data complete? And are the conclusions valid? A number of key things that peer reviewers should be looking at when they evaluate papers for publication in journals. And I'll tell you in a minute some stories from my experience as a journal editor, but very often peer reviewers don't look in detail at papers. They just say, looks good, or it's terrible, or there's a problem with the English, send it back to the journal. They don't do an in-depth, useful analysis. So we are going to change that. We're going to help understand the peer review process. We're going to provide training. We're going to provide support. That's publisher independent, focusing on researchers to help researchers understand the process and to help researchers manage the peer review process effectively. So what about the current state of the field? Has the paper that you're being asked to peer review identified a knowledge gap? If not, what's the point? Does it have up-to-date and valid methods, proper controls? Is there a proper quantitative analysis? Are the statistical tests appropriate? Are all necessary data included or discussed? And are the conclusions that the paper makes presented based on valid data, hypothesis, methodology, good data analysis, complete data, and valid conclusions? And let me tell you from my experience from data across the publishing industry, it's the methods section of papers that people tend to look at in most detail, especially when performing peer review. But one of our goals at ReviewerCredits is to provide support, training, helping young researchers, especially as they learn how to do peer review, how they can do peer review effectively and efficiently in order to maximize their career development. Because of course, if you're going to spend your time away from your PhD or away from your research, doing your day-to-day work, performing peer review for a journal, what are you going to get out of that process? Well, at ReviewerCredits, if you register with us, sign up with us, make an account with us, you will get credits for the reviews that you do for journals that are signed up on our platform. And there are very many of those journals, almost all of the journals now getting up more and more all of the time. You'll get rewards for the work that you do, for the peer review that you do, for the time that you spend working on peer reviews for journals. But you'll also, and perhaps more importantly, I would argue, you will gain key transferable skills. And keep in mind, of course, that most people who enter academia at the PhD level, at the postdoc level, at the early career level, do not end up staying in academia. They don't stay as researchers. Most people end up moving on from academia into other walks of life, into other jobs, into other careers. But peer review as a key transferable skill is something that's not emphasized. It's something that's not really talked about in any way. You're going to gain skills in the peer review process that help you to comment constructively on the work of others. You're going to gain key skills for your career, whatever line of work you go into in the future. And this is almost never taught. This is almost never transferred to young researchers. I remember I got my first academic job at University College Dublin over in Ireland. And one day I'm sitting at my desk as a young researcher. I got an email from a guy called Henry G, who at the time was a biology editor at Nature. And he said in his email, would I like to perform peer review for Nature, for a paper that had been submitted to Nature, one of my first peer review invitations. And I can tell you, incredibly scary, because what do you do in that situation? It's extremely flattering. It's extremely honoring to be invited to peer review a paper for a big international journal, doesn't have to be Nature, but you know the big journals in your field, any academic journal with an impact factor, it's a considerable career opportunity to be invited to provide peer review for that journals. But what do you do? What do you do? We're here to help. So if you need assistance, or if you've enjoyed listening to this webinar so far, do give us your contact information. Do get in touch with us, because we are going to be providing follow-up training and other courses for researchers in peer review to help you understand how you can manage this process to build your career. I've been a journal editor myself for almost 18 years at a journal called Historical Biology. I've seen lots and lots and lots of peer reviews, lots and lots of stories, lots and lots of good and bad experiences with peer reviewers and authors, all of the different kinds of ways that researchers interact with journals when they are asked to perform peer review. And I put together a little bit of a list, what I like to call my 7 dwarfs of peer review, the 7 different kinds of peer reviewers that we do tend to engage with, that we do tend to experience at our journal. And I'm sure it's completely the same at all international journals. What kind of peer reviewer are you going to be when you get invited by a journal to perform peer review? Kind number 1. This is the top kind, the number 1 kind. The peer reviewer that we encounter most often is a cursory peer reviewer, somebody who's no really any use at all to an editor, because their short comments are very cursory. They say things like, "This paper is great, please publish it as is." They don't make any further, more detailed comments. We get those kinds of peer reviews all the time, but they're no use to the journal. They're very little use to the editor. We need comments that can be passed back to the author to maintain the integrity of the publication, and also to ensure that the paper is good enough, quality enough, integral enough for publication in this journal. So that's kind number 1. I like to call the cursory peer reviewer. Kind number 2, an aggressive peer reviewer. And this is a peer reviewer who actually hates the paper in question, or even the author who's written the paper, and so tries to kill the study off. They try to bury the study. This is also very common. They write something aggressive. They tell that the paper is just terrible. The contents is just very poor. There's no reason for this to be published. Now, you would want to be, or we would hope that you would like to be, kind number 3, a thoughtful peer reviewer, making thoughtful, in-depth comments, providing constructive remarks that enable the author of the article that you're peer reviewing to improve their work. So far, we've gone through 3 of my 7 different kinds of peer reviewers. I would hope that you would want to be type number 3, a reviewer that provides thoughtful, in-depth, constructive remarks that enable an author to improve their work. So keep that in mind. Remember that we've looked at reviewers who are cursory, providing very short comments. We've looked at reviewers who are aggressive, providing negative comments just to remove the paper from the record. What about jealous peer reviewers? They're jealous of the author. They feel that he or she has made a significant contribution, but perhaps their name should be added to the study before publication. And I've seen this, I'm sure you have as well. You might get a paper for peer review and you think, well, I wish I'd done that, or perhaps I should be an author on that paper. This is also very common in the publishing process, but I would again encourage you to keep your mind, keep your eyes fixed on type number 3. Type number 5 are late peer reviewers. They're friendly, they're quick to email, they're doing the review right now, they'll get back to you as soon as possible. It's often all talk, and I know that I'm that kind of person very often with my work, with my peer reviewers, but you need to be doing the review in a thoughtful way. And then angry reviewers who've been asked to look at papers are then passed over in the journal process if they take too long, or because other reviewers return comments more promptly. And our least favorite kind of peer reviewer of all are invisible peer reviewers. 1 or 2 cases per month for us as editors of papers for which we simply cannot find anyone to review. And this has become more of a problem thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. Even harder these days to find busy academics who are prepared to put time in to peer reviewing papers. So which kind of peer reviewer are you? Which kind of peer reviewer have you been? Have a think about that. And which kind of peer reviewer would you like to be in the future? I hope that you will be a thoughtful peer reviewer. I hope that you will attend some of our training courses. I hope that you'll sign up on the ReviewerCredits site to get rewarded for the peer review work that you do. So picture the scene. You receive an email from a journal inviting you to do peer review. Do you have the time? Do you really have the time? Do you really have the time? Thought number 1, don't accept a peer review request from a journal if you really don't have the time to do a thoughtful, effective job. Is this your field? Do you really have the expertise? Think about that as well, because of course, providing a peer review to a journal that's cursory, providing a peer review to a journal that's no use to the editor is not going to help you advance your career. And thirdly, when asked by a journal, invited by a journal to potentially perform peer review, do you have any conflicts of interest? Do you know the authors? Have you worked with them recently? Did you supervise one of them? Have you collaborated or won a grant or written a paper with one of those authors recently? Because conflicts of interest should also be disclosed to the journal editor at the outset. Do you have the time? Is this your field? Do you have the expertise? And are there any conflicts of interest? Are things to think about before you begin the peer review process, before you accept from a journal to undertake peer review? And also, at ReviewerCredits, we are extremely keen on helping with transferable skills around peer review. So let's think about what the benefits are to us as researchers to get involved in the process. What are the benefits to you of being a peer reviewer personally, for your research, for your career, or for your academic discipline? Do have a think about these as well, because of course, normally you would not be getting rewarded. Very often at universities, at research institutes around the world, there's no reward, there's no recognition for the time that you might spend working as an academic on peer review. So we will help with that. ReviewerCredits was set up to help with that. ReviewerCredits was created as a platform to provide credit, to provide recognition, to provide verification for peer reviewers doing peer review. For helping with the process, you should get something back as a recognition, as a reward for participating in the process. But of course, there's got to be a career benefit for you, the researcher. So do have a think about that as well. We'll discuss a few of these topics a little bit later on. Do have a think, do write in the chat box if you'd like to discuss any of these issues, if you'd like to clarify for yourself or for your institute or for your colleagues some of the benefits of performing peer review. Because of course, if you are going to do this, if you're going to undertake to do peer review as a researcher, you are going to have to be responsible. You're going to have to be thorough, and you're going to have to be, I would hope, positive. Although the last of these points is something that peer reviewers often don't do, I would encourage you to be positive. Think about how you can help the authors of the study that you are evaluating improve their work for publication? What could be done better? How can you help? How can you be constructive in the comments that you make to help the authors improve? You will conduct a fair and balanced assessment of a colleague's work. You will be assessing the suitability of a paper that you're being asked to evaluate for publication in a particular journal. Thoughtful peer reviewer. Number 3 on our list of 7 different kinds of peer reviewers encountered by journals. Do you have the time? Is this your field? And do you have the relevant expertise to be thoughtful, to be constructive, to balance your comments to help that author improve? Imagine in the future working in any work, in any line of work, your boss comes up to you and says, Gareth, please make some comments on this document that I've created. Let's get those comments back to me by this time tomorrow. If you're negative, if you're cursory, if you're short, if you're late, if you're invisible, these won't enhance your career. By being thoughtful, by being positive, by helping the person, your boss, to improve their work, you will be enhancing your career. Effective, constructive, positive peer review is a key transferable skill that will stand you in good stead no matter what you do in the future. So by signing up on ReviewerCredits.com, by joining us, by taking our training courses, by gaining access to the rewards that we are providing for peer reviewers, you will learn, I hope, to be constructive, assessing the suitability of papers for publication in a particular journal. And by the way, if you've never done peer review before, or you're worried about how to do peer review, or you're interested in learning about this key transferable skill, do have a look at our training courses, because when you do peer review, you will be asking, is this question important and interesting? Or is it trivial? Are the methods appropriate? Is the journal choice appropriate for this work? And I would encourage you, I would very much encourage you to have a think about reading a study that you have been asked to peer review in 3 different ways. And if you'd like to learn more about the techniques that we advocate for performing peer review, working with journals, working with researchers around the world, do have a look at ReviewerCredits.com. But one great way to be effective, to be constructive, to be positive with your peer reviews is to put on 3 different hats when reading the work of your colleagues. Read the paper as a fellow in the field. Read the paper as a competitor in the field, and then read the paper as a colleague. Try to wrap those negative comments, any things that you think are not so good about the study, within positivity. Try to put the negatives inside the positives, providing a thoughtful and balanced assessment and commenting on the academic content, not necessarily the English. I would also say one of the most common kinds of comments that we do get as editors back on papers that get submitted to journals are comments about the English language. If you see a paper as a peer reviewer and you think the English needs to be improved, send it back to the journal. It's never your job as a peer reviewer to provide edits on other people's manuscripts. If the English needs enhancement, if the English needs improvement, send the paper back to the editor. So, is the question important and interesting? Are the methods appropriate? Is the journal choice appropriate for this work? So let me tell you quickly, as we come to the end of our session, we'll open the floor. Please ask us any questions. Please get in touch. But we do have a number of key, innovative and exciting features on ReviewerCredits.com that I hope you will have a look at, that I hope that you will engage in. And by the way, if you've enjoyed this presentation today and you'd like to learn more about the kinds of training that we provide to institutions, perhaps you're a university professor and you're sitting there thinking, it would be great to get some peer review training for our institution, for my research group, for my team, do get in touch, because we do have training courses that we can present online, live, for your researchers like this, but longer, but online, on-demand training on the website. We have our peer reviewer power-up training course with how to manage the peer review process, understanding why peer review is the keystone of academic publishing, why academics rely on this, why journals rely on this, and why peer review is a benchmark of quality, and understanding your role as a peer reviewer, expectations and outcomes. As we talked about in this session, you're probably going to be very nervous, like I was working at UCD, getting that email from Nature. Should I do it? Why? What can you expect to gain from being a peer reviewer, and how will it benefit you and others? Developing the right mindset, being positive, being constructive, making constructive and positive comments rather than negative and destructive comments about the work of others. Time-saving skills for critical reading and peer review as we learn to assess articles and papers from other researchers in a time-effective way. And constructive communication. When you talk to editors, when you talk to authors, when you talk to other peer reviewers, how to do this in the most effective way. So do have a look at ReviewerCredits.com. Do sign up. There's a pop-up that comes up when you jump onto the training page. You can get access. Sign up for our training courses. And if you'd like a longer training session, perhaps for your own research group, your university, your department, live, then do get in touch with us as well. So professional training, accredited professional training for peer review. Why? What to expect? Developing the right mindset, time-saving skills, and constructive communication. Our courses are online, on demand. They include quizzes and interactive components that help you develop the skills you need to be an effective peer reviewer. You get certified, you get accredited on the Reviewer Credits site. That means that journals and publishers partnering with us, signed up on our platform, will come to you because they want certified, they want accredited, they want peer reviewers for their articles, for their journals that are going to do a good job. So it's a two-way process. We are helping reviewers to gain the skills they need to be effective when working on articles for journals. Publishers love us because we are providing publishers, journals, with access to certified peer reviewers who have the expertise necessary to do a good job. It's a win-win situation with Reviewer Credits in the middle, but let me make no bones about it. We are on the side of peer reviewers. We are providing a platform for helping researchers to develop the skills they need to be effective at peer review, to be effective in their careers. So what we're also doing on the site, what's also present on the site, is the Reviewer Credits Reward Center. If you do a peer review, if you perform a peer review for a journal, you will receive a reviewer credit or several reviewer credits. And then those reviewer credits can be used to purchase wholly or in part a number of services available on the Reviewer Credits site. And this is the genius part of the idea, because researchers never usually get rewarded for the peer review work that they do for journals, but on Reviewer Credits, they do. You've seen other sites, and I see one of our colleagues in the chat box is mentioning Publons. Yes, Publons gives accreditation for peer review. It gives rankings for peer reviewers, so you can achieve a high status as an effective peer reviewer on your Publons profile, but you don't get anything for the work that you do. As I mentioned earlier, one of the most common questions that researchers ask us is, why don't I get paid for the time that I spend working as a peer reviewer for international journals, giving up my time, giving up my expertise to work for publishers? Well, on ReviewerCredits, you don't get paid, but you do get content, you do get services, you do get ReviewerCredits, which you can redeem against what are some of the best available services from across the industry. Editorial services, pre-submission services like journal selection, translation, editing, and pre-peer review, like post-publication services, videos, audio pods, content that you can use to help disseminate your study after publication. So do have a look at the Reward Center. Keep an eye on the ReviewerCredits site, because over the next few weeks it's going to change significantly. But we are offering credits. When you do peer review, you get credits. You can then spend those credits in the Reward Center in whole or in part against products and services. And that's how you get rewarded. You get compensated on the ReviewerCredits site for the work that you do for journals. So here's just a quick summary of the kinds of services that we will have available on the ReviewerCredits Reward Center: ebooks, access to journals, consultancy services, training I've already talked about, publication services, even conference discounts and APC discounts, article processing charge discounts against the cost of open access journal publications. And let me just give you a sneaky peek at some of the partners that we have signed up already on the site to work with us to provide some of those services. In the Reward Center, some of the best author services providers in the world are giving you, a signed up peer reviewer on the ReviewerCredits site, access to their services at the cheapest possible prices. At ReviewerCredits, we make no money from the peer reviewers. We make no money. We're just passing on the best products and services from across the industry to people performing peer review to provide rewards for peer reviewers. So do have a think about what we've talked about in our webinar today. Why do you accept to perform peer review? Why do you do that? Why would you accept an invitation from a journal to perform peer review? Do you think that peer review is an important part of academic publishing? And if so, why? Do you think that peer reviewers should be paid for their work? If so, why? And if not, why not? And will you tell us about some of your best and worst experiences with peer review? If you're listening to this and you've got stories to share, if you're listening to this and you've got experiences to pass on, do get in touch with us and tell us about them. Write about them now. You can unmute yourself in a moment and jump in and talk about them now. But why would you accept to perform peer review? Do you think it's an important part of academic publishing? Do you think peer reviewers should be paid? If so, why? And if not, why not? And what about your best and worst experiences with the peer reviewer process? And you're thinking, I know you are, how can I get involved with ReviewerCredits? Well, you can become an ambassador, represent us in your local area, talk to people at your institution, at your university about us, about how ReviewerCredits is helping peer reviewers around the world to get the best out of the process. Join us on a podcast. I'm recording some podcasts this week, so if you'd like to get involved, do drop me an email. I'd be delighted to set up a call, talk to you about your experiences doing peer review, and then you'll be broadcast around the world on a ReviewerCredits podcast. Or what about an interview for our newsletter? Get in touch. You can provide written feedback. You can provide an interview. We can put you into our next ReviewerCredits newsletter. What about blogging for us on your experiences as a peer reviewer? Get involved. If you fancy getting a blog article published on the ReviewerCredits website, we'd be delighted to have a look at that. Why not write a blog for us on your experiences as a peer reviewer? And don't forget, have you signed up for the Reviewer Credits newsletter? If not, why not? Jump on over to ReviewerCredits.com, have a click around, pop-ups come up, and you will have the opportunity to sign up for our newsletter. So become an ambassador. Join us on a podcast. Talk about your experiences doing peer review. Be interviewed in our newsletter. Sign up for our newsletter. Why not write a blog for us about your experiences as a reviewer? And with that, I will be delighted. If anyone has any questions or any comments, do please write them in the chat box. Do get in touch with us if you'd like to book a call to talk about your experiences of peer review. Do stay engaged with Reviewer Credits. I hope that I've been able this afternoon, this evening, to explain a little bit more about how we work, what kinds of content, what kinds of services we will be having on the Reviewer Credits website, how Reviewer Credits is dedicated to helping reward the efforts that researchers put into the peer review process. My name's Gareth Dyke. Do get in touch. Thank you so much for joining us today. And let me quickly have a look at the chat box. I can see that we do have a number of questions, some of which have already been answered, but thank you so much everybody for engaging us. We've been asked whether Reviewer Credits can be integrated into submission and review systems such as ScholarOne or ePress, similar to Publons. Yes, absolutely, Mark, that is happening. It's happened already with some of the publishers, with some of the submission systems, but yes, the idea is absolutely to integrate it. Absolutely, what it's going to take, Mark, for it to be taken up and integrated by these big submission systems is for as many people as possible to create a Reviewer Credits profile. So share the word around within your institution, talk to your students, talk to your colleagues, make sure they are aware of Reviewer Credits, a way of getting recognition for the work that people do as peer reviewers. So that is also very important. I see my colleague Dimitra has answered a number of the questions that have come up into the chat box. So do have a look at the Q&A. Everybody, thank you so much for the wonderful feedback. It's great that people are talking about the training services. Yes, the training services do provide training on evaluating methodologies and data analysis. Nora, get in touch with us. We have lots of different packages, lots of different content options for training. If you need a specific course on data analysis, we're absolutely able to provide that. Absolutely. Hayat is asking, considering that we shouldn't follow the reviewer's comments blindly, how can we deal with situations in which we refuse to bring further adjustments to the manuscript? And that's a great question, very common question. You send a paper to a journal, you get peer review comments back. Some of those peer review comments you don't agree with, Hayat. Should you make those changes even if you don't agree with the comments that the peer reviewers have made? Absolutely not. But what you do need to do, what you do need to have if you're going to disagree with the comments that if you're going to disagree with the comments that a peer reviewer has made about your paper, you are going to have evidence to support the reason that you're not making those changes. So bear in mind that peer reviewers can say anything they want about your paper. They don't need to have any evidence. But if you're going to disagree, if you're not going to make the changes suggested, then you need to have citations. You need to be able to back up your arguments, Hayat. You need to be able to say, I'm not making these changes for X, Y, and Z reasons. Okay, fantastic. I think we are almost done. I'm just checking the chat box one more time. Thank you, everybody, for all the fantastic comments. My name's Gareth. Do have a look at ReviewerCredits.com. If you haven't signed up yet for our newsletter, why not? If you haven't made a profile on ReviewerCredits.com as a peer reviewer, why not? And stay tuned, because we will be doing a webinar event once a month, lots of other content. Sign up for our newsletter. Stay tuned for the next podcast and other information that we will be releasing soon. And with that, it just remains for me to say thank you, everybody, for your kind attention this evening. Thank you for joining the event, and we'll see you in the next Reviewer Credits webinar next month. Thank you so much and have a great day. And thank you for taking the time to come to our event today.